All right, so while I'm waiting for my front wheel hubs to get machined out for the bigger 35 spline outer shafts, I'm working on swapping the transfer case to the FJ Cruiser manual shifted T-case, which came from 07 to 14 in the automatic transmission FJ Cruisers. I've read online that will directly bolt into the Tacoma 5-speed manual transmission found behind the 2.7 4-cylinder. So we're going to test that theory. So what I've done so far is unplugged my electrical connectors. There's 3 of them up here on the actuator, along with disconnecting the vacuum line. And then there is a sensor here, your vehicle speed sensor output, and the oxygen sensor for your rear oxygen sensor, which all plug in that area. So I've gotten all those unplugged, and I'm just now starting to remove the bolts that hold the transfer case to the back of the transmission. Now the transmission is supported by the cross member here still, so when you get the transfer case unbolted, theoretically you should be able to get it down off of there, but it is going to be kind of heavy, so you know, be prepared. But yeah, right now I'm working on that. We're going to get this thing unbolted, see if we can drop this transfer case off the back, and let's see what we get into on installing the FJ Cruiser case. All right, here are the 2 transfer cases side by side, and it is amazing how similar they are actually. So you can see this being the manually shifted case, how the shift rods stick out here. So we're going to want to look underneath at the back of the transmission and make sure that there's clearance for those rods to stick through. So that'll be one thing we're going to have to inspect for. I can tell you that it looks like the coupler shaft for the automatic transmission appears to be shorter than the one for the manual transmission. And the manual transmission one is smooth diameter all the way out, where this one has like a polished surface where it would ride on a seal and then tapers down. So we're going to need to see if we can pull these off of here and swap that coupler. Hopefully it's the same spline count and everything. That would be super rad. And then, you know, other than that, I did get Front Range, I believe it is Front Range Off-Road twin stick shifter to utilize with the FJ Cruiser case, because mine did not come with a shifter, and theirs was on sale. So I did grab myself, you know, picked up one of those. So we are going to have to take this apart and get that ball out of there, the detent ball, to allow the independent shifting of the high and low range in the 2- and 4-wheel drive. So we'll do that before we put it back up into place. You can see we're going to have to do a little wiring if we want the 4-wheel drive light to work, the indicator light. All that lighting function worked through the switches here on the transfer case motor. And now it's going to be done through these here on the shift work shafts. So, but man, physically, otherwise, I mean, it looks identical as far as front and rear drive shaft should bolt right into place. If you were putting this back into a stock truck or something that's not getting modified to the extent that mine is, yeah, I'm excited. I think this is going to work out good. The big hiccup for right now is going to be that output shaft adapter, and we're going to check that, our input shaft adapter, I'm sorry. And we're going to check that out right now. Stay tuned. Okay, so the magic tool to get it off of the FJ Cruiser case is a different kind of chisel. Don't try this at home, kids. Use at your own discretion. Safety gear must be worn, but it worked. Now I can get my Pitman arm puller behind there. See if we can draw this bad boy off of here. And it fits. So I was able to press the one off of the FJ Cruiser case the same way, and took the one from the Tacoma case, slides right on the FJ Cruiser case. I mean, slides right on. I did have to tap it on there. It was a press fit just like the other one, but it's on there. The spline count's the same, lines right up perfect. So I have no reason not to believe that this thing is going to go in there. We just got to get under there. We'll double check that there's room for the shift forks to stick through. And then I'm going to go ahead. I got to take this one apart so I can get the deal out so that I can operate the twin sticks. So I'll show you guys that too for those that are interested. And for now, I'm going to slide underneath there quick and double check this. And then I need to set up a work table so that I can tear this down enough to get that out of there. Let's look. All right, and here under the truck, you can see the transmission has a really thin case way high on the top. And that looks like it'll give us plenty of clearance around those shift forks that are sticking through. It looks like it's meant to be there. So yay for us. There was no fluid in this area, by the way, when you drop this or take this apart. I mean, unless your transmission output seal is leaking, which mine wasn't, thankfully. I mean, it's bone dry in here. So we're gonna be able to put that back together. We'll clean the surfaces real good, but there was no gasket material or anything in here. I'm not sure if, probably wouldn't be a horrible idea to put some sealant or something here, just so we don't get moisture in between there, because this truck is gonna get used in that fashion, but I don't know, we'll see. All right, so for those of us who are trying to put our manually shifted FJ Cruiser case in with twin stick setup, this is gonna be what we gotta do to perform those modifications. So we have to split the cases, which means we gotta pull this flange off, pull that nut, pull the flange, pull these bolts out, pull the back cover off. There's some detent balls behind these plugs on either side of the case, which give the detent feeling to shifting the case. So we got to pull those out, and we'll loosen the sensors up because those also have like a spring-loaded detent that's pushing on those shift shafts. So we got to get all that stuff loose so that we can get the pill, they call it. It's a little connector that's in this back section that's like the interlock between those two shift forks. We need to get that interlock removed so that they can shift independently. Also, we need to remove a portion of this particular fork here. You can see that those would overlap each other, not allowing independent shifting. And so that needs to come and be cut as well. So I've seen some guys fit like a little Dremel tool down in here and cut that off. You can kind of see from an angle that there's that little ear that needs to come off of there. I don't have a little tiny Dremel tool like that. So we're gonna see if we can get that shift fork clean out of there and use a regular cutoff wheel that I do have. But I'm not sure how involved that's gonna get. So we're about to find out. Okay, so we took the nut off of the yoke there, that popped right off. Then we removed the 512mm bolts around the flange for that. Got that off. Now we need to pop off this snap ring that's holding this bearing to allow the case to slide past that bearing to get that case half off, and then we'll get all these out and those detention springs out. So if you're like me, you get overzealous and just start yanking bolts out. Thankfully, Toyota used the same exact length bolt all the way around the back of this case for these main case half bolts. And the 5 bolts that hold that first flange together were all the same. I did have to remove a little skid plate piece here that was underneath the drop on the one side. And those 4 bolts are the same for that. So yeah, just plugging away. I just removed the little Allen socket screw that's covering that detent spring and ball. And so now there is the spring. And the ball is down in there. I'm gonna have to magnetize a screwdriver or something to get that. But yeah, we'll get that one, we'll get the other one, and keep charging forward. All right, and so with a little finagling and finesse with the chisel and a hammer and a flat screwdriver, we're able to work around and get the cover pulled back off of the shift forks. Kind of hung it up there for a second, but we were able to get that off. And now you can see, I don't know if the magnet won't fit in there, but the pill piece is in this right here. It rides in between these. So let's do this. If we take and magnetize our Allen wrench, we stick it in there. Ooh. Can we get to it? Maybe not. Maybe. Oh, maybe we just rock it up, and there it is. That's the pill that you got to remove between the two shift forks in that case half right there. So we'll get that pill out of the way. And next, we got to get that ear cut off. So we're gonna try and figure out the best course of action to get this ear shaved off of here. Yeah, so Whitney came home and I'm in the middle of tearing this thing apart to do what I need to do. And she's like, what is that thing? And I'm like, inspired by the Fab Rats. Michelle's naming that part. Whitney named that part. What do you think we are working on here?
I don't know. I said a crankcase. But I have no clue.
Crankcase is not what we're working on.
Okay, hold on. Let me guess then. So that is a timing chain, I'm assuming. And
can I give you a clue?
There's bearings in there.
Yep.
And so let's see.
So this goes with it, that goes with it, and that goes with it.
Well, is that the inside of the transmission then?
Close.
Transfer case?
Bingo! Yay! Nice job, babe. She sorted it out.
Really, because I didn't get it the first time.
Yeah, but you got there. Yeah, so anyway, don't do what I did. Classic Andy, don't do what I did, right? So learn from my mistakes. If you look in there and you see the one key on that inner gear that's like a keyway. So there's actually 3 of those around that. And in taking things apart and moving things, I pulled this gear out slightly, and those 3 little keyways all went clink, clank, clunk down into the bottom of the case. So I'd use my magnet, get them and find them and put them back into place, and then slide the gears together enough to lock them and hold them. After looking at this further and attempting to shift the shift forks, that knob passes by the other fork with no problem. I don't think I need to cut that off. Now, maybe if those shift forks and the gear are in a slightly different spot, but I think they'll work just fine without it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slide the case back half back on, just loosely put it together with a couple of bolts, put my shifters in there and just try it before I dismember this thing down to pull that shift fork out of there, because that looks like a big job. You're gonna have to pull the gear stacks out, which means pulling more bearings out. And I don't know that I wanna get into all that if I don't need to. So if I can leave that little nub and just removing that pill is enough, then hallelujah. But we're gonna find out here shortly. All right, so you can see I've just kind of loosely put the case back together. I put like 4 bolts in it just to hold this back section back on. And I think I am seeing the reason why you need to grind that. I haven't even put the shifter in yet, but I just thinking through it as soon as I started to grab the shifter, you can see that those two shift forks are going to have to ride side by side with that lever. And in order for the shift fork on our right to move independently of this one on the left, that's why we have to grind that nub off. So we're going to have to get that nub off in order for this one to move front to back. It's not because of these are interfering with one another inside the case. It's not until you put this outside shift rod into that fork that then they're going to bind up. So now I see why we got to cut it. Now we got to figure out what we're going to do and get it done. All right, so getting the case put back together here. Put sealant, fresh sealant between the halves as we bolted that together. Fresh sealant between the rear cone as we put that on. And then noticed that there wasn't a vehicle speed sensor on the FJ Cruiser case. It had this plug in that port. So I removed the vehicle speed sensor from the Tacoma case, and it looks like it should just bolt right into place. It's the exact same location as the other one. So whether or not you take your rear cone with the gear in place and put it on, or you just swap the sensor over as I'm doing, whichever way, but you're gonna need that. And yeah, we'll get the rear flange put back on, and then we got to put the detent ball and springs back in there and all that jazz, and keep charging away here. Okay, so here the unit is all put back together, and the shifter is just temporarily installed, obviously, but you can see when you're spinning the input shaft, just the rear is spinning, so that's two-wheel drive. It's a 1-to-1 range, so that would be two-wheel drive high range. The lever to the driver's side is your high-low range selector. So you can hear that click twice. Neutral, nothing. Forward, low range. So the rate that I'm spinning that front, the back's going much slower. So this is your high-low range selector. The other side is obviously your two four-wheel drive selector then. So if I move that lever forward, which, yeah, I'm gonna have to put the camera down maybe. Or I just need to move it the right way. So if I put that lever backward, now I'm in four-wheel drive. So forward, two-wheel drive, backward, four-wheel drive. Low range, back is high range. So yeah, fun. Next up is taking this back off. We're gonna put some tape over the top of this to cover it. I'm gonna take a couple of measurements, figure out the center line of this and approximate center point, drill a hole up through the floorboard inside, and then start figuring out exactly where that's gonna come through inside the truck. But yeah, pretty cool. For tonight, that's it. And keep watching for future updates as we get this case put under the truck and start sorting out where these shifters are going to come through on the inside.